Hello people, Frank Stearns here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more about HiFlo couplers. In this case, I'm going to talk about a very popular design which is sold under different brand names. This particular one happens to be a Milton Color Fit Purple. Another coupler just like it, identical coupler, interchangeable parts, is sold by Menards under their brand. I don't think they give it a name, it's just Menards. It's also sold under the name Merlin and Husky and some other names. HiFlo sells them. I've bought them all. They're all identical. You can exchange parts. Here's two of the main parts, components. The inner piston assembly, identical parts, probably made by the same company in China. Okay, anyway, most of them, I don't think any of them actually explicitly say they're compatible only with HiFlo plugs. I'm not sure about that, but the ones I bought, they don't say only compatible with HiFlo plugs. So, because that's true. Also, when I first bought these, I started out buying these from Menards because we have one right down the road. And I used them with these common HiFlo plugs. It's the one with the large internal bore. The standard is 7.1 millimeter. The old standard being about 5 millimeter. So it's 2.1 millimeters larger. That's quite a bit larger than the old common standard, which should give you a lot more flow, but does it? I've spoken about that extensively in other videos, as you might know. What I wanted to talk about today is the inherent problem with this design that most people, I'm sure, are not aware of. Did you know, for example, that these couplers accept all the common plug styles? For example, look at that, long nose Lincoln, snaps right in there. See that? How about an arrow? Arrow locks in fine. True Flake, well, locks in there fine too. And of course, the even a Stedlin full flow plug locks in there fine too. In addition to the one that is supposed to work with by default, the purple color fit plug, HiFlo plug, 7.1 millimeter. Just like any HiFlo plug, they're all the same basically. This particular one happens to be made out of steel. Now, one of the things that troubles me about this design is, even though all these different plugs fit, the only two that actually work are the HiFlo, which does in fact work, and the arrow, as it would happen. The arrow actually works and it seals well. See, right there it's held. I'm pulling the collar back, it doesn't come out because it's held by the O-ring, which has got tension on the barrel. So it's sealing on the outside edge of the barrel, which, interestingly, is the best way to make it an airtight seal, especially if you want a long-lasting airtight seal. It's better if the O-ring inside seals on the outside diameter of the barrel. No question about it. Because then the plug is free to rotate against the rubber and will not damage the rubber at all. However, on the plug presumably it was designed for, the HiFlo plug, that is not the case. I don't know if you can see up in there. Perhaps if I show you the innards of one of these things. You can see there's a rubber O-ring in there. And the O-ring is jammed, is tight, it won't even move. It's jammed into an internal groove, which nicely fits the arrow plug. However, the HiFlo plug hits it at the edge where it, at the edge of the groove. And because the O-ring only sits out just a little ways, it actually hits on the back slope of the rubber O-ring, which is not too good, which causes it to, most of the stress, to be right up against the edge of the outside of the barrel. The worst possible place to make a seal, because that's the edge, that's the point where the plug is most likely to get damaged from handling. and the stress on this tiny little area in contact with the rubber is very high, which causes significant wear if there's any rotation. And as it happens, in actual use, the plug is virtually guaranteed to rotate inside the collar because there's nothing to stop it. So when you're moving around using a tool, even though it's not really designed to rotate in here, unlike a Stedlin, as you rotate it, that's likely to cause damage to the rubber O-ring. And it's almost guaranteed to cause damage through normal wear and tear on the plug, where this edge gets a little bit rough just from handling. In fact, this was already that way. Even the steel plugs, which are case hardened, same thing will happen. So that's really not very good. So this is much more likely to damage the O-ring. This is way more likely to damage the O-ring and cause premature failure of the seal. So I thought I'd point that out because it's kind of strange. The other thing is compatibility is an issue. If you put in, I could demonstrate it, but you put, for example, a TrueFlate in here, even though it locks in, it doesn't seal because you can see here, because of the large barrel, it doesn't even touch the O-ring. It won't even go in. So it doesn't make a seal at all. The air just blows out. In the case of the Lincoln, even though it locks in, the barrel is so small that it goes right through the O-ring and doesn't touch it. So that doesn't work. In the case of a standard industrial plug, it does make a seal perfectly on the ID of the on the inside diameter of the O-ring, which is nice, so it won't leak. Problem is, because of where the end of the plug is relative to where the balls lock it in place, causes it to not push this assembly, the piston assembly, all the way open. So when you hold it in position, normally what will happen is the air flow is cut off because the piston doesn't open all the way. It only opens about yay far, so it doesn't open all the way, so therefore your flow is partially cut off. Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Anyway, it doesn't flow as well as it should because it's not you can demonstrate that by just taking an air tool and pushing it in while it's under pressure. You can see the difference in the flow. So long way of trying to explain it. Anyway, the HiFlo coupler is optimized apparently for an aero plug, not for a HiFlo plug. Sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? True. So it works fine with aero, doesn't work with TrueFlate, doesn't work with industrial style, at least not properly. Doesn't work at all with a Lincoln style, and the plug is designed to work with the best. Flows okay, but more prone to leakage. Anyway, that's my story for today. Okay, take it or leave it.